down to the end of our copperleaf deal. And, we kind of looking for another project. I don't know that you need us involved in developing or ownership or whatever, but we're looking.
Okay. Well, we might.
Or I'll just talk.
Yeah. Well, advice is always helpful. I don't know what I'm.
I thought you had control of like half of the side of the state. Running out.
Selling.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you get a good product.
I have 4 pieces left of residential in Copperleaf all in the contract. This is one of them today. And then we're done. When our buying anymore from Richmond and KB and DR Horton.
I didn't think Richmond and Horton like to be in the same sandbox.
They don't. Horton does a lot of specs, and Richmond doesn't like it. But I like it because of the assessed value they create for the bonds. It's very significant. But it's such a good project that Richmond's probably built. We probably have 12 neighborhoods. They've probably built over half of them. My son better show up.
Yeah, ask Daniel's come over.
He's got all the paperwork. Well, it shows the man posted and all that stuff.
He's the just-in-time guy.
Call me.
Yeah, well.
I may hang around a little to listen to you.
I'm going to call to order today's meeting, a public meeting of February 13th, 2018. To my left is Ron Carl, the county attorney. To my far right is Jolene Sanchez, assistant clerk to the board. Okay. Okay. Ms. Sanchez, would you please call the roll of the board?
Commissioner Jackson? Here. Commissioner Holland?
Here.
Commissioner Sharp?
Here.
Commissioner Conti?
Good morning.
Good morning. Commissioner Baker?
Here. Commissioner Holland, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Please join me. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Carl, are there any modifications to the agenda this morning?
There are. So item 6F of the consent agenda, there's 3 changes to that I'm going to point out. One is a change to amend the resolution for the Arapahoe County Community Corrections Board on page 12 and remove item 11 listed under agency representatives in that resolution. And the second is to amend the resolution for the E911 authority on page 16 and change the title as listed for Vincent Line to show him as the Arapahoe County Detention Administration Bureau Chief. And then the third is to amend the resolution for the Fair Planning Committee on page 22 and replace the vacancy shown there with Deborah Deichtel, D-E-I-T-C-H-E-L, with a term expiring on February 11, 2020. And those are the 3 changes.
Modifications. Thank you, Mr. Carl. I would entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Sharp and seconded by Commissioner Holland. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve. The first one is for the public meeting of 1/16/2018. We did have a full board. Is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Holland and seconded by Commissioner Conti. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed or abstentions? Nope. So that motion passes unanimously. The second set of minutes that we have is for the BOCC public meeting of 1/23/2018. And again, we had a full board. I would entertain a motion.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Holland, seconded by Commissioner Conti. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. So that motion passes unanimously. The consent agenda, I would entertain a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda as modified by Mr. Carl earlier today.
So moved.
Oh, sorry, I got ahead of myself. This is the time when we ask citizens to approach and if they have anything that they would like to say and address the Board of County Commissioners about any item not already on the agenda, please make yourself known to me. Any public comment? Seeing none, now I'll entertain a motion. I'm sorry, and I believe that motion was made by Commissioner Holland.
I made the motion.
Commissioner Sharp made the motion as amended to approve, and Commissioner Holland seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? None. Thank you. So the consent agenda has been approved. We have 3 items, I believe, on the under general business items, and all 3 are public hearings. The first item is public hearing P17-014 Sky Ranch subdivision filing number 1, final plat, and the county attorney on this is Mr. Robert Hill, Senior Assistant County Attorney. Would you set the foundation for us, Mr. Hill?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Both this item, the final plat, and the vacation for Sky Ranch are related to the same application, or the same development. So if the board is inclined, it can combine the 2 public hearings for both the vacation and the final plat. The board would need to make, separate motions for each agenda item. Relative to noticing in jurisdiction, this case has both the vacation and the plat have been noticed by posting and mailing of adjacent property owners in accordance to Land Development Code. Both items have been published in the newspaper. There was a typographical error in the publication where it had the date of today, but the year of 2017 accidentally written. I do believe this is substantial compliance since the other notices had the correct date and full measure, and that the context of the newspaper publication when it went out and was published 2 or 3 weeks ago, a little more than 2 weeks ago, that it was clear that it was 2018 and not 2017. So I believe the board has jurisdiction and can proceed on both these public hearings.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. I did preface this by saying that it was P17-014 Sky Ranch subdivision filing number 1 final plat, and the option is that the board can consider is to combine the public hearings for V17-006 Montclair Gardens second filing, which is the vacation of the right-of-way. Is there any discussion or objection to us combining those two? Seeing none, then we will combine. Our presenter this morning is Senior Planner with Public Works and Development, Molly Orkild Larson. Good morning, Ms. Larson.
Commissioners. Molly Orkild Larson, Senior Planner with the Public Works Department. What's before you this morning is the final plat for the Sky Ranch development. This is the first filing, and it's also known as Neighborhood B. And along with that, we have the Montclair Gardens second filing, right-of-way vacation. The final plat proposes 506 single-family lots, and also tracks that would accommodate wastewater treatment plant, parks, open space with trails, and detention facilities. Within this plat, they are proposing 3 parks. One would be a neighborhood park, and the other 2 would be 2 pocket parks. No schools are proposed within this filing or other public facilities. Accompanying this plat is a vacation request that proposes to vacate a portion of a 30-foot right-of-way of an unnamed street that is located along the north property line within Neighborhood B. And this vacation will assist in the creation of an open space tract and a single-family residential lot. The conditions of approval have been revised, and I have provided you a sheet, just one sheet, that shows the conditions. So in the staff report, and I want to go over that with you. So in the staff report, there's 6 conditions. 1 and 2 and 6 would not be revised. Condition number 3, we're requesting that be deleted because that has been satisfied. We received a letter from Tri-County Health saying that they didn't have any other questions, and their questions were satisfied. Condition number 4 in the staff report, that talks about the vacation of an easement that's located within the road right-of-way for 6th Avenue that's being dedicated. And this is, the condition mentions Mountain State Telephone and Telegraph Company. It's now owned by CenturyLink. To provide some flexibility for the applicant if the beneficiary of the easement decides that they don't want to vacate it. It's written in the new amended draft motions that it provide flexibility for them to try, and if they can't, then it wouldn't hold up the project.
Commissioner Sharp.
Just a question. When you said eliminate 3, you weren't talking about this.
No, 3.
Okay.
And
you're talking about the original. Sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Just want to make sure I'm.
The written one that we do have does still have Mountain State's Telephone and Telegraph.
That does. The revised amended one does still have that.
Okay.
And we're revising that to be more flexible.
Okay. So we're not changing that to CenturyLink.
No.
Okay.
It's understood that CenturyLink is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Sorry, just to make sure I'm understanding. This sheet that we have got on the dais has the corrections that or the changes that you're talking about. Okay.
You are correct. If you have more questions on, go ahead.
I have another question. I just read this new number 3, green sheet. And it just sort of, just in my quick reading.
Sorry. In my quick reading of this green copy of number 3, it sort of said if they can do it, fine. If they can't do it, that's okay. Is that what it says?
Basically.
So why do we include it?
Well, and there's some background to that, and I was going to get into that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So on right-of-ways that are being dedicated for roads and subdivisions, our policy or what we try to achieve is not having any easements within those right-of-ways. We want them free and clear. That's our first option. So we try to see if the applicant can do that, if there are easements within that right-of-way. In this case, there is one that is owned by CenturyLink. It's unclear presently if there is utilities in it or not. the applicant can further pursue that with them and see if they would be willing to vacate that. Chuck Haskins is here, and he can go into more detail on that if you'd like. Yes, go ahead.
If they aren't willing,
if they're not willing, then that's not our first option, but we would allow it for that not to be vacated.
And I see our attorney's kind of leaning in, so maybe he has an explanation.
CenturyLink's willingness turns on what they may have in the easement, if anything. If they don't have any lines in there yet, then they would be willing to vacate it and, rely on our right-of-way when it's in place. But if they have lines in it, they're reluctant, I understand, to vacate.
So we're good with either
one.
Either one.
We prefer not having any easements in there, but we would be okay if they did not vacate the easement.
Okay. I guess it's just not written in a way that makes it real clear to me what it just superficially reads as, well, if you can do it, good. If you can't, that's okay. So then that leaves me to wonder, why is this here? Is that making sense to you? Is that making...
It is. Yeah. I think what we wanted to do is allow the relief, but we wanted to make sure that CenturyLink refused before we would allow that relief. So they actually have to say no.
Perhaps we could word it that way.
Sure.
In a way that says, our preferred is this,
okay,
but if that is not possible, then that. Would that be more clear?
Okay. I guess we would have to construct something.
We'll take that up after the presentation.
Okay.
We'll have some new draft condition for number 3 language that will make sure both the applicant and staff are aware of, and which Mr. Hill will have input into, if not right. So,
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Sharp.
Has CenturyLink been contacted? Or
yes, I have contacted them. The applicant has said that they tried, but I was successful, and they were going to have their engineer go out and check to see if there was any lines in that easement, and they were supposed to get back to me by the end of yesterday, and I did not hear from them, so it's unknown at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Please continue going over the changes to...
All right, I shall. Okay, and so condition number 5 in the staff report covers cash in lieu fees. The applicant is fine with the school cash in lieu fee and also for other public purposes. And so I broke that out in the revised conditions of approval. But they did want to talk with Open Spaces further to see if they could get more land considered as parkland or linkage that would connect parklands together. So see if they could get more acreage applied and less of a cash in lieu fee. Open Spaces is willing to do that, and we did meet with them, the applicant and Open Spaces, to discuss this last Friday, and they're willing to do that. The applicant is also proposing a pedestrian underpass that goes under, Monahan Road. And this would provide some linkage between Neighborhood B, their parks, and then with Neighborhood A and the other areas in the subdivision. So they do want to have that looked at. And then Open Spaces did state that in that meeting that they would be willing to look at the credit against the cash and low fees for them putting in this underpass. So basically number 5 of the new conditions of approval, that's what it says. If you want to take a minute and read it, and then if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Sharp, sorry. It just seems like there's some loose ends here that I'm struggling a little bit with. CenturyLink and then this. I'm fine with cash in lieu, but it seems like what you just said is that the decision hasn't been made yet.
No, they want to see if they can get, if other land within neighborhood B could be dedicated as parkland.
Okay.
So it's work in progress, basically. And then whatever acreage they come to an agreement on, then the cash and fee cost per acre that was established through the school district, that would be applied. So it would be about $47,000 per acre.
I hope you can understand. I'm not trying to be critical, but I kind of like to have things when it comes to us to have these done, and so that when I'm looking at something that I need to approve, that I understand it's sort of completed, and everybody's in agreement with what needs to be done. That's just my discomfort with a couple of things on here.
Okay.
So, I know everybody's working on it, but it's hard to sit here on the dais and approve something that's sort of still a little fluid. Let's just say that.
Okay. Is it something that you want to have staff come back to you with some numbers, or?
Yeah, I think it's not just this application, but I mean this particular issue, but I think when we're on the dais, I think that what makes me feel comfortable is that what we approve is, I know what we're approving, and I know what's going to happen, rather than sort of leaving something open-ended and then somebody has to get back. That's not a good feeling for me as I approve things and I look forward and, enough said.
Okay. Other comments or questions? Commissioner Holman.
From the perspective of your shop and your communications with open space and the negotiations with the developer, where are these discussions at this point? And is there, in your view, is there assurance that they will be completed expeditiously?
They're very motivated to get this project.
Both parties?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Continue with your presentation for now.
Basically, staff is recommending approval for both applications based on the findings in the staff report. And this concludes my presentation, and I'll turn it over to the applicant for his presentation.
Thank you. I do have one question for you, and I just want to clarify, because I think I read it in your board report, that neither one of these went before the Planning Commission. Is that correct?
No, they're not required to go in front of the Planning Commission.
Correct.
They're the ruling body.
Excellent. Any other questions for Ms. Orkild-Larsen at this point?
Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess the applicant, Mr. Harding, if you'd state your name and address for the record, please.
Good morning. My name is Mark Harding. My address is 5530 South Forest Lane, Greenwood Village. Thank you for your time this morning. We're delighted to be here. I'm going to give you a kind of an overview of the presentation, and then I want to drill down on some of the key questions that you've asked, both in terms of the two conditions that are kind of giving you a little bit of heartache here. So, as you're aware, location-wise, we're right on the I-70 corridor. This particular phase is our first phase. We have all 934 acres as a project. This blue section is our first phase that we're looking to develop. Some geography, we're about 20 miles, equal distance between downtown and the Denver Tech Center. We're directly south of DIA. So this is what it looks like. We've got 506 single-family lots, and one of the things I want to draw your attention to is the amount of open space and parks and trails that we have. We went very deep on the design for the open space, the parks, and the trails on this. And so if you look at this, we have close to 40 acres of parks, open space, and drainage area in the development itself. And then I want to highlight a couple of other slides that kind of give you a little bit more functionality to each of those. So the difference between these two is what we tried to do was just take out those drainage improvements themselves that would probably not qualify as open space or parks. And so when you take those elements out, we're still about 30 acres of improved trail corridors, open space, and parks themselves. The parks themselves, we've got a large community park in the center. We've got two different parks that are going to be age segregated. So we'll have play equipment that'll be age specific. I think this one's for a little younger age, probably has some equipment that's a little bit more of a modernized climbing gym. It's no longer the monkey bars that we all grew up with. It's a little bit more structured activity. And then the northern park here will probably have a little bit more sort of the elementary school to the early middle school type development. And again, really new, innovative play structures for that. They'll all have sitting structures, benches, parks, shade structures at each of these. And then the next slide really is going to highlight, this is the entry monument area. So you take a look at what we really wanted to do is create a trail corridor so that not only do we have functional features that really signature this development, but also some open space and some park areas that come along the entry boulevard. We talked a little bit about the underpass, the pedestrian underpass. And so what we'll take a look at here is sort of we have about 3.5 miles of improved trails in the system. And so the underpass here, we really did think it was important to have an integrated trail network such that we're working together with the East Metro Working Group within Arapahoe County so that we have this network of trail corridors that come along the First Creek corridor and then down into maybe some of the other corridors that are being developed, even Triple Creek. So the investment that we're making underneath Monaghan, this will be a very large pedestrian box culvert that will provide a safe environment for people that want to take a look at this trail network and come around, go back out, and then have another exit point from the property into the First Creek Trail corridor here, another trail corridor access here that'll interleak into future phases of the project. So we really have looked to design this with a very robust open space trail corridor and then regional context to that. This is just some of the architecture. So we've got 3 different builders. Each of the builders will probably have 5 to 6 different types of products. So what you're going to see is a very diverse housing product here. This is targeted toward entry-level housing. So lot sizes are around 4,500 square feet to 5,500 square feet in terms of the overall lot size. So home sizes will range from just slightly under 2,000 square feet to slightly under 3,000 square feet, depending on what size lot they're on and what attributes that they're going to have for that. So those are the key ones. Let me drive back to 2 of the other issues that we're talking about here. First, let me talk about the vacation of the right-of-way. There is a small 30-foot right-of-way right here that eons ago was dedicated to the county, and I'm not exactly sure. It was, number of years ago. There's not a roadway corridor alignment up here for you to need that right of way. So what we took a look at was having a small open space feature here and then ultimately have it being able to integrate in through the neighborhood into this area and have some access in there. So that was what the right of way vacation was, that small right of way vacation in that area. When we talk about the conditions, this condition 3, which was the Mountain States telephone, that's the old mob bell. So this is a 1960 easement along the 6th Avenue corridor here. And so it goes all the way from Powhatan. This actual one easement goes all the way from Powhatan over through to Monaghan Road. So half of the easement isn't even on our property. And so when staff would sort of say, hey, it's our policy to have this, I agree. That's a great policy. But in terms of Mountain States and now CenturyLink, it is very difficult. There is no way we, as a private entity, nor us as our district, can compel CenturyLink to vacate this right-of-way. And so for that to be a condition of that, there was no way for us to perform on that. So we sort of said, okay, I understand. We're more than happy to reach out and see if there's any way we can get that right-of-way or that easement vacated as part of this right-of-way dedication. I will tell you, there are four lines in that easement. I've crossed it 4 times, and it now owned by CenturyLink. The biggest one, which is literally a 6-inch pack of fiber that goes from here all the way out to Strasburg, and it has billions of lines of communication, and they actually physically have to be on site. Now, this was owned by Level 3, but CenturyLink acquired Level 3, so they may not even know that they own this this pack in there. But then there are, at 10-foot intervals, 3 other lines that are in this easement. So, I'm not sure it's going to be on their maps, but it certainly is on their locates when we go out and we cross this for our utility easements, and they actually send somebody on site when you're digging there. So if you break one of these, it's $1 million a day on that. So we were, that's keeps us up at night when we do utility crossings on that. So I'm not sure that they're going to vacate that. They can vacate that, and the county's policy is that they can still operate and maintain those. So I'm sure Bob will give them that comfort level that they're not losing any of those rights, that they maintain those rights, but, they may look at it a little bit differently. So that's why that condition was a little bit softened, because, we need to be able to perform on that to be able to get this entitlement. On the open space dedication requirement. So when you do the numbers on this for the math on the lots and the population, we have a dedication requirement about 9 acres. And so what we looked at is we have about 30 acres. So we believe we've met that requirement. We met with open space last week, and they said, well, yeah, but we're really kind of sensitive not to have things like this count, which might be just improved walkways, and I get that. You don't want to set a precedent in there. So one way or another, we'll meet that requirement on the open space dedication. If it turns out that they don't want to have some of this qualify and they come up with a fee that would be otherwise from what we've defined as our open space dedication, they've agreed to say, and we'll credit you out for this box culvert, because that's a huge investment, and that's something that we very much want to encourage. So whether it's fees or whether we credit it out, we have resolved the issue. It's just how we're going to make that determination. So it's a little bit of inside baseball in terms of how the county's land code and open space want to work it out to make sure that they get that right determination. So I think that condition has been satisfied. It's just how it's going to be determined.
Commissioner Sharp.
And I'm fine with all of that. I just kind of, if open spaces, or if there were delays and from the county standpoint in getting this done, that's what I guess I would have liked to just had it all completed and known what the negotiations were and how you all worked that out before we came today. Not that I'm opposed to any of this, and I just want to make sure that that from the county standpoint, we're doing what we need to be doing to work with applicants to make sure we get this done in the time where these kinds of things come to the board for approval.
Commissioner Jackson.
Yeah, you mentioned.
Sorry? You mentioned stormwater and all those kinds of necessary things. I'm wondering, in the gray spots there, could you tell us what, other than just doing pavement, what those gray spots are? And
Yeah.
So we've got our wastewater treatment plant here. And this is an out parcel in it. The gray spots up here are really going to be kind of improved open space areas, so there's no utility function in there. This will be a detention pond. and this would be kind of a channel for that detention pond, and this is another detention pond. So of those, wastewater utility, out parcel, and then some stormwater drainage in these two areas.
So an out parcel is land you don't own?
Correct. We will dedicate those gray parcels to SEMSWA.
But the rectangular one on the bottom, that out parcel?
Yeah, this one will be this will be dedicated.
No, to the right of that. The rectangular one.
Oh, this one. Yeah, we do not own that. That's
okay. Okay.
Third-party ownership.
And so in other words, the detention pond and the whatever you call that, the outflow of it, the channel, and those will actually be green,
yes,
hopefully. Okay.
I mean, that'll still provide a tremendous open space component. I mean, it's got a visual aesthetic to it.
Right.
We've got a design for it that's actually a very meandering, sinuous flow. Instead of having the drop structures that are typical for drainage areas, we've worked with Urban Drainage and SEMSWA to make that be their new innovative design.
And can you talk to us a little bit about the facility, the storm drainage and whatever kind of wastewater treatment or whatever it's going to be, and how you're going to control for odor and that sort of thing? Because we've had some cases where neighbors don't like to live next to those.
Yep. So I highlighted this a little bit. This is a little bit more. Let me get back here. So this is actually going to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you not? You weren't finished with your presentation.
No, I was, but I can.
Oh, okay. All right. Great. Thank you.
I have, in anticipation for questions, I have a couple of slides in my pocket to be able to give you, and that's one of them. So this is actually the wastewater treatment site. So if you look at this site, what we're doing here is we're actually burying most of this facility. So when you look at it, you're going to just see a park-type atmosphere for it. And so these are kind of the vantage points of it. We will have a small building that will be a vertical building that you just have to have for some of the equipment, but the process equipment is actually going to be mostly underground. And so how we handle controls, odor controls, this is a full mechanical plant, so it's full air controlled. We have air coming in that allows us that process equipment. We clean that, we scrub that, and then we release that out. But it'll be a full mechanical plant that really has one of the more innovative designs to make sure that that blends in with the community. You know, we do have lots that are going to be directly adjacent to that, so we've got some nice landscaping. So that this is sort of the vantage point. This is the vantage point from these lots. Here is going to be this vantage point. This will be kind of the entryway. So we've got a park in front of the feature. This is what we call a zero discharge facility. So 100% of all that treated water will come back. We will store that, and we will use that for irrigation.
Commissioner Conti.
Yes, and just to confirm, this is wastewater versus sewage, correct?
They're the same, yeah. We look at it as, treated sewage, which becomes total reusable effluent water supply.
Okay, so it is sewage.
Yeah, it is your municipal household wastewater sewage.
Okay. Just wanted clarity there.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Jackson.
I know that one of your hats is in water business, and so I know I will be asked this question, which is where will the water be coming from?
So we have a blended portfolio of water supply. We have surface water supplies out at the Lowry property. So we have water supplies that come through Box Elder and Coal Creek. We have very significant surface water storage on Lowry. We have something close to 80,000 acre-feet of storage sites on Lowry, which are some of the most advantageous sites in the metropolitan area. We look to develop those regionally, not only for our purposes, but also in conjunction with the South Metro Water Supply Authority. We're a member of South Metro Water Supply and a member of the WISE project, so we get water supplies from WISE. So what we have here is kind of a combination of a number of different supplies that all integrate into a very reliable, sustainable supply. it's great to have a good surface water portfolio, but then in years like this, it becomes stressed because you may not have very good surface water runoff. If you've got good groundwater rights together with reuse water rights, which are very stable, very predictable, then that helps take some of those demand features off. We use treated wastewater as far as our irrigation components, so we want to make sure that we're good stewards of that water supply. So it's really a combination of all three types of supplies.
Thank you.
You bet.
And I know we're not addressing the wastewater treatment plant at this hearing, but it's fascinating to me to hear about a treatment facility buried. Of course, there needs to be access to the plant for maintenance and workers to have access to that. And I didn't see that on there. So I'm just curious about how folks will be, the workers, the people that maintain and operate that plant.
Right. And so when you're looking at this vantage point, you don't really see that access point. If you were looking at it this way, you would see that access point. So this is where that buried site is. But as you come into the site, and I don't have a good illustration of that, but you'll come into the site, you'll drive around on this north side, and then that's where you will see the entrance to the site. So you'll have a 10-foot opening entrance. So we're not actually going to go down into a hole,
right,
but the majority of it is covered up, and we use some of the topography of the site to be able to really improve the aesthetics of how this site looks.
Thank you.
You bet.
Commissioner Conti.
So it's a retaining wall?
No. Well, it'll be an improved structural, building face. So it'll be probably, it'll be structured poured cement, and then we'll put some treatments on it for probably split face block or something like that. It has a good aesthetic to it.
Any other questions?
And I guess I'm also curious. I know that there's some new technology out there in wastewater treatment and sewage treatment. Are you using some of that 21st century technology?
We are. So it's most of that stuff is in process control equipment. And so what we want to do is have that, and really a site like this will be about a 1.5 million gallon a day facility that will be almost operated completely autonomously. I mean, we'll have operators that go in there during the day to just check on things, but for the most part, it'll be an autonomous operating facility.
Okay.
Great.
Are you done with your presentation?
I am, unless you have any more questions.
Questions, concerns?
Thank you very much.
Seeing none, thank you very much. Okay, this is a public hearing. I don't know if anyone has signed up to... No, nobody signed up. I'll go ahead and open public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to comment on this, please make yourself known. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for any additional discussion or questions from the board. Seeing none, I'm ready to make a motion. We have some conditions to the approval. I plan on supporting this and making a motion to approve. And I do have I'll go over the changes that we've worked out on number 3. Number 5, my feeling on that is that we're giving the applicant and our open space department the flexibility to come to an agreement about this, something that I think they've traditionally done throughout this project. And while it may not be as hard and fast as we like it to be, I would, if any of the commissioners have any suggested changes to this. Otherwise, I think Commissioner Sharp.
Yeah, at this point, I can't make any changes because we don't have the people here to to resolve this issue. I think my feeling is I'd just like in the future to have these things resolved. If it's within the county, to resolve between our departments and any applicant coming forward, resolve before they come to the dais.
I agree. And
so I understand there's nothing we can do
on this one, and I'm not opposed to going forward, but just in the future. That would be my preference.
Duly noted. I'm going to be making two motions. The first one is in regards to P17-014. Let me get to the exact language. P17-014 Sky Ranch Subdivision Filing Number 1 Final Plat. In the case of P17-014 Sky Ranch Subdivision Filing 1 Final Plat, the County Commissioners have reviewed the staff report, including all exhibits and attachments, and have listened to the applicant's presentation and any public comment as presented at the public hearing. I hereby move to approve this application based on the findings in the staff report, subject to the following conditions. 1. Prior to signature of the final copy of these plans, the applicant must address Public Works staff comments and concerns. 2. The approval of the Sky Ranch Subdivision Filing 1 Final Plat is contingent upon the approval of the Montclair Gardens second filing, Vacation of Road Right-of-Way V17-006, which I will be making a motion on momentarily. 3. It is the preference Prior to signature of the final copy of these plans, the applicant shall provide evidence that the Mountain States Telephone and Telegraph Company easement has been lawfully vacated or released. It is the preference that the Mountain States easement be vacated. However, if there currently are utilities existing and the easement holder refuses to release or vacate the easement, the applicant may be relieved from this condition. 4. The applicant shall pay a cash in lieu prior to recording of the final plat. Schools, the sum of $480,002.58, and other public purposes, $17,627.89. $17,629.89. I'm sorry, 627. I'm going to say that all over again. For other public purposes, $17,627.89. Number 5, prior to the signature of the final copy of these plans, the cash in lieu fees for public parks shall be paid to the county in the amount that is calculated by PWD staff under the provisions of the Land Development Code. Such amount shall be based on the fair market land value amount determined for the cash in lieu for public schools and shall reflect the difference between the amount of land required for dedication for public parks under the Land Development Code formula and the amount of land that is actually dedicated for public parks to the Sky Ranch Metro District pursuant to the final plat. In determining that amount, if applicant and Arapahoe County Open Spaces agree in writing, the applicant may receive a further credit against that cash in lieu amount for the amount that the applicant agrees to pay towards the estimated cost to construct a public access underpass at Monaghan Road in order to provide public trail connectivity from the Sky Ranch development to other parks within the development. 6. Prior to signature of the final copy of these plans, a location and extent for the wastewater treatment facility shall be submitted for review and shall be approved in accordance with the Land Development Code and state law. And the applicant shall provide evidence that an appropriate agreement or agreements acceptable to the county have been obtained and are in place to provide for and guarantee the construction of all on-site and off-site public improvements required for this filing one final plat.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Baker and seconded by Commissioner Sharp. Any further discussion or questions? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstentions?
And Mr. Chairman, just for clarification on 5 from my standpoint, I understand that we have follow-up things that, for example, in number 1 is the signature of final Mylars and address public works staff comments and concerns. I think my issue with 5 was it had some financial considerations here with cash in lieu and that kind of thing. So I think that's what I saw as different from often what we have in these in approvals, because I know there are things that have to be done with final Mylars and that kind of thing. This was just a little bit different for me, so absolutely. I understand we're not going to have every I dotted and T crossed. There are still going to be some things, but hopefully on the financial, when there's cash in lieu or some sort of financial transaction that still needs to take place, that could be resolved.
I agree. I think that's a very important part of.
I just want to make sure I'm clear, because I certainly understand, and we've been doing, there are a lot of things that aren't exactly resolved. So just for clarity, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sharp. Any other discussion? I will move towards making a motion for case number V17006, Montclair Gardens second filing vacation right-of-way. In the case of V17006, Montclair Gardens second filing vacation right-of-way, I have reviewed the staff report, including all exhibits and attachments, and have listened to the applicant's presentation and any public comment as presented at the hearing, and hereby move to approve this application based on the findings in the staff report, subject to the following condition. 1, prior to recording of the vacation right-of-way, the applicant shall address the public works staff comments and concerns. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Baker and second made by Commissioner Holland. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Hearing none. Any abstentions? That motion passes unanimously as well. Thank you, Mr. Harding and Molly. We're going to move to item number 7C on our agenda. This is a public hearing as well. We'll be changing some pages here and going to the public hearing for P17-021 Copperleaf filing number 15 final plat. And again, our attorney for this is Senior Assistant, let me just get your title right here, Senior Assistant County Attorney Robert Hill. Mr. Hill, would you lay the foundation for this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This final plat application has been noticed by publication, by posting the property, and by mailing the adjacent property owners as required under the Land Development Code. Board has jurisdiction to proceed.
Thank you. And our presenter this morning is Bill Skinner, Senior Planner with Public Works and Development. Good morning, Mr. Skinner.
Morning, Commissioners. The planners know when they come before you, some days you're the main event, and some days you're the cool-down exercise. I am the cool-down exercise.
All right.
So, P17021 is a final plat for Copperleaf. Copperleaf being generally located south and west of the intersection of 470 and Quincy. And this plat specifically being located west of the intersection of Copperleaf Boulevard and East Radcliffe Parkway. So you notice probably, I hope you noticed from the one aerial photograph we have in the staff report that the area is largely undeveloped at this time. Copperleaf is in a constant state of build out. And so what we have today is land that was intended to be developed into single-family detached homes at some point per the Copperleaf preliminary development plan from the early 2000s, and we're at that point. So the master developer is seeking approval for a final plat for 97 lots on 18 acres and supporting tracks and infrastructure. Plats, again, I think you've heard this from me a lot, but I'll go through it for the record. Our plats are largely dictated by state statutes. Staff goes through a process, we go through a public notification process, and we review the plat documents to be sure they comply with those state requirements. Staff doesn't have a whole lot to say about it other than making sure they're addressing the concerns of the surrounding properties. As you know, sometimes we get a neighborhood that's coming in. It's a new neighborhood amongst the existing neighborhoods. The existing neighbors can get pretty interested in what's coming down the road. In this case, we don't have that. So staff doesn't see any difficulties with this plat. The master developer and the former Richard and Daniel Frank have performed as reliably as ever on this, and staff recommends this move forward. We recommend approval for this. Final plats do not go before the Planning Commission, so we do not have a Planning Commission recommendation to bring to you, but that is normal and appropriate in this condition, in this situation. The Franks are here if you'd like to speak to them.
Any questions for Mr. Skinner? Do the Franks have a presentation they want to make, or is it more just because all in the board summary report you did provide some pretty detailed drawings of that. So
we go through the technical attachment process with a sensitivity to potential loose ends. Staff doesn't regard this as a loose end because we know that working out the final details with the fire districts, they'll provide comments. In this case, it was a number of pages, but they are just technical direction for the applicant to finish working out issues with the fire department. We're trying, based on some input we got a little while ago, to put a bow on those. And I have in my hand here an email from South Metro Fire that says, "Thanks, Blake. It's under the approved record. No other needs at this time." And that's from Amanda Silva, professional engineer with the South Metro Fire Department. So staff considers the fire department issues resolved and under control.
Okay.
And I believe that was the only outstanding comment we had in the external referrals.
Any other questions for Mr. Skinner on this project? If not, I think we would like Mr. Richard or Daniel Frank to come forward. And if you would, please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Richard Frank, 7400 East Orchard Road, Suite 290 South, Greenwood Village, 80111.
Good morning, Mr. Frank.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is a continuation. Let me try to. You see a lot more lots on here that are laid out than are actually platted. But this is the Pinion neighborhood. The Pinion neighborhood right in here is the 97 lots. To the south is Richmond Homes. They have finished their infrastructure, starting their construction of their homes. This was the senior center that was approved by you some time ago. Hasn't had any construction yet, but it's a 15-acre senior center campus that'll abut the Pinion neighborhood. The Bristlecone Pine neighborhood is the paired housing with KB Homes that was approved about a year ago, doing very well. This Oak neighborhood has been submitted, right? Yeah. This has been submitted 234 single family. And then the commercial here hasn't happened. Here the commercial is we have a convenience store, Maverick, that has opened. We have several other pad sites that we're negotiating. This parcel, I can't read the name of the neighborhood, but
Alder.
Okay, thank you. This is single family and also paired homes that'll be submitted in March. And over here was the townhome parcel many, many years ago that Beezer Home, before they left the state, we got that approved. We're now negotiating a contract on that that'll be detached, but some pretty high density detached. So the Willow neighborhood is under construction. Everything south of the power lines is done. There's still some houses to be built in this neighborhood and a little bit in the Aspen neighborhood. But for the most part, all these other neighborhoods are sold out. And so we moved north of the power lines. And again, this one's under construction. This is under construction. And we hope to get this under construction right away. So it's 97 lots, primarily 50 by 105. There are some larger ones. There'll be improvements to the north side of Radcliffe as it abuts the property. The south side of Radcliffe is all done. The school has been open for a few years, so we're going to do the north side here, and then when the Oak neighborhood comes in, we'll do the north side of Radcliffe there. So I don't know if there's any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Frank? One of the questions I had has been answered by your side as far as the continuing the naming after certain types of wood or trees. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the only other question I had is you mentioned one of the home builders. How many total are involved in Copperleaf?
Total number of home builders?
Yes.
From the beginning, well, let's see, mostly Richmond.
Yeah, mostly Richmond.
Cat-Pack. There's probably 6 or 7 that have been involved in here.
That's what I was
over
thinking.
Years.
I've been through all of those model homes there, mm-hmm. and was impressed with the product that they're offering.
They've done a nice job. I think we're the HOA board, and we have our annual meetings. We rarely have any real big complaints. We haven't had to raise dues in years, right? I think we raised them $2 or something, but yeah. So we still have what we call the Arboretum down here, which is 2 swimming pools and a big clubhouse, and people just love it. It's used all the time for parties and weddings and all kinds of stuff by the people in there. Our dues are only about $60, $62, which when you look at other subdivisions in the area, we're way under. And so we've been very lucky, and we have a very large cash reserve too. So we think we structured it right from the beginning, and it's been very, very successful, except through the recession.
Questions? Commissioner Sharp.
Mr. Frank, just a quick question on the north side, some of that's already developed, but what do you think in terms of your estimate at this point in the number of homes that you have left to, like properties left to develop?
Close to 800.
Okay.
That would include what we've already sold that's under development here and here and here. Probably 800 to maybe as much as 1,000. Yeah, and then that's right, Daniel, right. We have a negotiation with a multifamily for apartments on the south portion of this commercial piece, and probably do commercial across the front, much like this. So that's, I think, around close to 300 units that would go in there. So altogether, I think on the single-family side, probably 2,400 homes.
Okay. And barring another, if I could just follow up, so barring another recession, what's your kind of time frame for completion of your total project here?
Our time frame on the land sales to the builders, we have 4 parcels left, basically, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they're all under contract. This one will go under contract probably this week. So I think getting through the county process, I think we probably close all those by first or second quarter of 19, and then the build out of those are probably another 5-6 years, I would think.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Jackson.
I'm just curious. I'm not sure it's part of this approval, but I'm just curious about, I asked the previous applicant about water. So who supplies your water?
East Cherry Creek Valley Water and Sand District.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I was just curious.
We're their biggest customer.
Okay.
One of their only customers.
Since we're talking about things, I believe it may be, I can't remember what road I turn off of Quincy. There's a sign that says
Boulevard, or
it could be, but there's a sign that says "Future Home of Bark Park," like a Dougie.
Off of Piccadilly.
Off of
yes.
Piccadilly. That's it.
We're going to start designing it this year, and it's going to go right here.
Okay.
Now we do have a problem with it. The piece of ground is small, and with the new drainage requirements, we may need to try, and we've talked a little bit to Arapahoe Park and Rec about trying to put it over here on their property. Now they won't maintain it, they won't pay to build it, but our HOA or Metro districts would do all of that. And we've yet to present anything to APRD, but we're going to go back and look at the design right there. So this street isn't in. This is Radcliffe. And Richmond is doing Radcliffe from here over the pipelines. This is Conoco, and connecting to the middle school. So they're going to go from here over, and then with this piece, we'll do this piece of Radcliffe. This one will fill in the gap. And once that's in place, then we can put the dog park in. Right now, there's no access to it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Conti.
Just curious, do you have any builders that have come in and are willing to put up any condominiums? Or is it all going to be just single-family detached and apartments?
Yes. All single-family detached and apartments. No. We had a townhome builder. I think we had a hearing with you on it, but they walked away. And no condominium discussions. That particular builder that was going to do townhomes talked to us about condominiums over here, but again, they disappeared. So I don't see condominiums. I don't even see any townhomes right now. Yeah, what we're going to come in with something, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but on this piece is what we call Richmond Homes calls the cityscape, and it's a townhome that's been detached from each unit about 6 feet between units, and they've been building them in a number of locations, so they're going to look at that here.
Thank you. Any other questions or concerns? If not, then I'd like to make a motion again. Unless someone else would like to make this motion. Okay. In the case of P17-021, Copperleaf filing number 15 final plat, I have reviewed the staff report including all exhibits and attachments and have listened to the applicant's presentation and Wait a minute, I didn't open up public comment, did I? So I do need to do that, I'm sorry. I'm opening up public comment. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address the board? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment and continue with making my motion. Including all exhibits and attachments, and have listened to the applicant's presentation and any public comment as presented at the hearing, and hereby move to approve this application based on the findings in the staff report subject to the following condition. 1, prior to the signature of the final copy of these plans, the applicant must address Public Works staff comments and concerns. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Baker, seconded by Commissioner Holland. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Are there any public or commissioner comments this morning? With that, our meeting is adjourned. Forgot it was a public hearing. There was no public hearing.
I tried to use your computer because you had it up. I tried to load it like 5 times and it would say, can't find the document.
It was